We haven't always agreed, but our conversations have always been candid and always been frank. We have never kidded one another. We've been level with one another. I think that's vital. These conversations prevent miscalculations, and they ensure the competition between our two countries will not veer into conflict. Be competition, not conflict.
Mr. President, are you concerned about U.S. China relations under the incoming Trump administration?
President Biden dodging when pressed about U.S. ties to China under Trump as he awkwardly stands in the back corner of the APEC conference annual photo with world leaders, with Chinese President Xi placed front and center. Our next guest says Trump's reset of the U.S. China relationship is probably one of the most underappreciated accomplishments of his first term. Fox News contributor Michael Pillsbury joins us now. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Rachel.
I saw that picture. Not only was Biden in the background, but that entire event was overshadowed by the fact that China had a port, a $3.5 billion port that they're, inaugurating or opening up in Peru. And so another symbol of the power, the commercial power and interests of China that we have neglected. So talk to us about what that moment looks like, why it's bad that our president is in the back, whether we like Biden or not, and how that could change because President Trump is now ascending into power.
I think the change when President Trump takes power will be just enormous. He already turned the Washington point of view on China around when he was in his first term. But I think Rachel, he was failed by a lot of his appointees who didn't agree with him on China. They were really quite pro-China, didn't want to make any trouble. What has happened now, three big things that are newsworthy. The first is he's assembling a team of people who think the same way he does on China. Not only Marco Rubio, Mike Walls, but also he's talked to the Wall Street Journal, which reported it yesterday. He wants Bob Lighthizer to come back and be his trade czar, sort of oversee commerce and treasury and other departments in terms of trade. That means the first thing they'll want to do is restore the trade agreement where China promised $200 billion to really greatly increase American jobs. The second thing is you see in a picture like this, it shows the timidity. It shows how much the Biden team was afraid of China, and they just couldn't get the fentanyl deal done. So China is still, you won't believe this, Rachel, but China and its IRS-type websites gives companies a tax break for selling fentanyl precursors that go into America and kill tens of thousands of Americans. So this is high on the agenda, Mr. Trump told me. The third thing is really more important than anything else. He's concerned about nuclear war. So trying to bring a ceasefire in Ukraine, people don't associate China and the power of China over Russia. That if the Chinese say no more, we're not helping you anymore, you've got to have a ceasefire in the Ukraine, Putin has to listen to that. It's the secret way Trump has already described to me in a long meeting that he wants to bring Chinese pressure on Russia to stop in Ukraine. He's got the Chinese to openly say, this is during the campaign, Chinese openly said, we don't want nuclear escalation. We don't want to expand the war. Sovereignty is important. These are things that have already made Russia kind of angry at China. So you see what Trump can do. He's promising a Ukraine peace plan during the time he's president-elect. That's the next 2 months. So the team is there. The Chinese are already giving positive signs, and it's going to be the end of this Biden timidity that lets the fentanyl come in. And also, Biden just did not start trade talks at all. Remember how important that was under Trump? Notice there's no trade talks with China because the Chinese refused to come. It's really quite an opportunity for Trump to get leverage and get things done with China.
Really quick, one last question. You say that the deep state, the national security establishment, those bureaucrats want to stop Donald Trump in this next term because Wall Street gets rich and somehow they're doing they're doing the work of Wall Street, who gets rich from not dealing with China and its military ambitions. I don't have a lot of time, but if you could just address that quickly, because I think people don't understand that connection.
Yeah, I think President Trump knows this. There'll be deep state resistance to his China policy. So his appointments are really, really important. Right now, Marco Rubio needs a China expert. Each department of the government's got to have an assistant secretary for China. If those people are deep state, then it'd be very hard for Trump to succeed. He's got to have a lot of people who agree with him in the various posts. I think that's going to happen. At least I hope it's going to happen, Rachel, don't you?
Yes, yes. Michael Pillsbury, you're always on top of this topic. Thanks for joining us this morning.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.